but I don't know if my main like watching is going to be done there because I'm staying at Paris this year, so that's kind of like right in the middle of everything. So
Yeah.
um, I don't know if that. I honestly don't know how their sports book is. I haven't stayed there before, so I'll have to check it out. But I know Bellagio is right across the street. I could always walk over there if I had to. So lots of options. That's the
Oh
good
yeah.
thing.
I
Oh.
love it. I love it.
I love it too. Sorry for the audio issues over on YouTube. I apologize. Like OBS loves to reset. They love to reset my audio settings every time a Windows updates, and then now I have to go back. I keep forgetting to check it. So my apologies. We should be back now, so you guys should be hearing us at this point. So, well, I mean, what we were, if you missed, what you missed is we were talking about Vegas memories, Seattle memories, and things like that. And it was definitely a good time. But it's good to have you here, and I'm glad to have a crowd tonight in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us. So, let's get right to it. I mean, college football was just bananas, and I'm actually going to go to John first. Like, John, Bama had one. I mean, Texas had one get away. Bama had, Notre Dame, after hanging tough against Ohio State, lost outright to Marshall. But bigger than that was Appalachian State after the near miss against North Carolina, going into College Station and beating Texas A&M outright. What an incredible weekend of college football. It just was bananas from beginning to end. But what's interesting, there were surprises in a lot of different levels. Like folks thought, because some of the picks were for Stanford, and USC just humiliated them in at the Farm. So, John, I mean, how do you assess all this? Plus, at the end of it, Scott Frost got fired the next day, which is like sooner than a lot of people anticipated, but not completely surprising, John. So, tell us a little bit about what you thought about about the weekend in college football. It was just madness all over.
Yeah. How about the Sun Belt? We talked about it before the season. I mean, the Sun Belt East is like the new SEC West here. Marshall goes into South Bend and really outplayed Notre Dame the whole game, and they ended up winning. I mean, Notre Dame, their quarterback gets hurt, and they really don't have any like explosive offensive playmakers other than their tight end. But really, Marshall outplayed them. They get the win. Appalachian State goes into College Station and gets a win at Texas A&M. Now that game, A&M outgained them. Like it could have really gone either way, but still, like App State made the plays when they needed to. They get the drive at the end of the game to close it out. And then the coup de grace, Georgia Southern winning at Nebraska to put the final nail in Scott Frost's coffin. And it's funny, Clay Helton, who we all just, laughed at for Georgia Southern hiring him. Well, maybe he's better off at a kind of a smaller school like that and not at somewhere like USC where it was just not really working out well. But maybe at the group of 5 level, he clearly has headed the team ready to play. And, they put up 650 yards of offense. It was clearly, obviously it was a crazy game back and forth, but there was no fluke that they won the game. That's the Sun Belt continuing to stake a claim as maybe one of the best group of 5 conferences. I mean, certainly will be once those 3 teams leave the AAC next year, as we've discussed. But I mean, App State's in the driver's seat right now for the group of 5 bowl bid. I would say between them and the AAC winner. I mean, it's very early to say, but I mean, that's what you'd have to think at this point. Even though they did lose to Carolina, but I mean, that was just a wild game in itself. We didn't have the recap show last week. That was just a batshit crazy game. But the Sun Belt coming through clutch with those upset wins, and and obviously we'll get to the Bama Texas game in a minute. But I think in general, a lot of the results, you hear these people, the news broke about the 12-team playoff, and you hear some of these fans saying, "Oh, well, it doesn't matter. Alabama and Georgia are going to win every year." Well, like, prove it. Like, okay, if they're good enough to win the 12-team playoff, then they'll win the 12-team playoff. Like, what's wrong with getting more teams in it? And we saw on Saturday, Alabama as a 20-point favorite. They should have lost that game to Texas. Very unfortunate that Quinn Ewers gets hurt. He looked excellent before he went out of the game. Like, he was dropping dimes. He was playing great. I think they would have won for sure if he had stayed in the game. Even without him, Hudson Card came in, and that was more of a offense kind of, took a step back. in terms of the play calling and game planning and whatnot, but they still moved the ball pretty well. I think Sark got a little conservative with some of the plays, especially the end of the half. He went for the field goal. I think maybe he could have been a little more aggressive for a touchdown. There's that bullshit call in the end zone, which, they called the roughing the passer / grounding, but they called targeting. They couldn't take it. Like, it was just a confluence of events. They ended up being like, okay, it's just an incomplete pass. And Texas, Alabama had a pump, but really it should have been a safety, intentional grounding. So they couldn't take away those penalties. It was just a shit show. Bama had so many penalties. They had over 10 penalties, and they were able to escape. So give credit to Bryce Young. He's the Heisman Trophy winner. So he made the plays when he needed to make them at the end of the game to get the final drive to, down the field and win. But Bama they showed themselves to be vulnerable. And I think the point is maybe the year is more wide open than we thought coming into the season, just based on these first couple of weeks. And also, like I said, the 12-team playoff, maybe this is, it's just not going to be, okay, well, it's just going to be Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State winning it every year with no competition. Maybe, these teams going on the road to play at some of these schools is going to be a challenge. So it was a crazy week. Let me see if there's any other games I want to mention here. Yeah, Dave, you mentioned USC Stanford. I picked Stanford, so that was a bad pick on my part. But Stanford turned the ball over 5 times in that game. They couldn't score on the goal line. They really moved the ball pretty well against USC. So I'm not going to – USC won, but I'm not going to upgrade them too much. I think I might be going with Fresno here in a little bit for my picks. But, so that was kind of a disappointing game because you brought that up. And then the late action was just tremendous. If you were still awake for Baylor, BYU, and Oregon State, Fresno State, that Baylor BYU game, man, I don't even know what to make of it. There's missed kick after missed kick after missed kick in overtime, and somehow BYU ends up getting the win. And then Oregon State goes for the win at the final play and beats Fresno State. That was a wild game. So I'm just kind of rambling at this point, but it was a great week of action and lots of competitive games and upsets, which you want to see in college football. It makes it so much more fun than just these teams winning by 4 touchdowns every week. Yeah,
it's interesting because I think as you see that, you go into a week where you kind of the matchups seem to suggest on paper that that's going to happen. But you know what Ron says, you never know where the upsets are going to come from. And I think we could have more of the same this weekend too. So let's go to Andy. Let's get your recap of last week's action.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback where John left off, and I'll start from the nightcap, move backwards. Yeah, the BYU Baylor, that game fucking had juice. But if you had Baylor plus 3.5 or Baylor plus 2.5, you're still feeling it, where. They lost by 6 in double overtime. Baylor had first and goal from the 4 in the second overtime, down 6. All you needed, if they get in that end zone, you're not going to lose your bet, because obviously with the way the overtime rules are, it's going to go right to the 2-point conversion attempts. They had to go for 2 had they tied it at 26-26. So if they don't get it, then it goes 2-point conversion versus 2-point conversion versus 2-point conversion. And if they do get it, then they win. But 4 cracks, first and goal from the 4, they don't get it. And as John mentioned earlier, both teams had equal opportunities to win it themselves in regulation, field goals, doink, doink, doink. We all like Shapen at quarterback for Baylor, but he had a lot. He just didn't seem like he had his best effort out there in Provo. They ran the ball at will against BYU, and good win for BYU. Their coach is tough to take. And then I'm never gonna get over it. Obviously it's just gambling. You get over it. You are over it. But I'll rant about it anyway. That Fresno State Oregon State game, Jeff Tedford, I like him, but he really fucked it up. They're up 5, 4th and 5. You have arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the country, Jake Haener, 4th and 5. You're up 5, 4 minutes left at the 35-yard line of Oregon State. 4 minutes left. Move the chain. Go for it. Move the chain. You can ice the game right there. What does he do? He calls timeout, and he brings in this kicker who's already missed an extra point, already missed a chip shot field goal, and they try a 52-yard field goal. What do you think happens? They miss. Oregon State goes right down the field, boom, boom, boom. And now Oregon State now has a 4-point lead, or a 3-point lead, I'm sorry, because they go for 2. And now Fresno State equals them, goes right down the field, boom, boom, boom. And what happens? They're up 3. What happens? They miss the extra point. Of course, they miss the extra point. So now Oregon State, they only need 3 to tie and go overtime, or are they going to go right down the field and go for the touchdown? So what do you think happens, as John mentioned? They get to the 2-yard line. There's 8 seconds left. They line up for the field goal. What does Jeff Tedford do? He fucking calls timeout. He calls timeout. I don't care about the F-bombs. He calls timeout. And that makes Oregon State change their mind. Well, you're going to call timeout, freeze my kicker? We're going to just try to end it right then and there. And they do a wildcat formation, and Jeff Tedford calls his last timeout. And then they go back out again in the same wildcat formation, and they score at the last play of the game. And let's just say we had maybe 9 units on Fresno State. So yeah, that was a cool ending. Yeah, that was a tough pill to swallow. Mm-hmm. And credit to Oregon State, but fuck Jeff Tedford. It all goes back to that 4th down play, 4th and 5, 4 minutes left, up 5, and you're going to put it in the hands of this fucking clown field goal kicker that already missed an extra point, and already missed a chippy field goal. But anyway, it was still a good game. Stanford, USC. Yeah, Stanford lost by 13, but as John mentioned, they fumbled the ball a million times in USC's red zone. David Shaw's a piece of shit. USC, I don't trust their defense, but their offense was good. Just an embarrassing game for the Pac-10 or the Pac-12. Stanford can't even get a good crowd on ABC on Saturday night with Herb Street and Reese Davis because Fowler was doing the U.S. Open. Meanwhile, Fresno State sells out their stadium for Oregon State, 40,000 people at Fresno. Meanwhile, at the Farm, you can't even get a good crowd there. But fuck David Shaw. John mentioned all the Sun Belt magic. That was great to see. Georgia State UNC was a wild game as expected. Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher, king of the look ahead situation because they have Miami. It's funny. Basically, game day would have been at College Station this week had they beat App State for the Miami game. But since App State did what almost the unthinkable because they're 19-point underdogs, now game day is going to App State for Troy. So good for them. Good for ESPN. What else? Yeah, Alabama, Texas. It's too bad that the Texas quarterback got hurt because he had some mojo going. Granted, that first drive was scripted plays, but Alabama looked a little shaky on the road. So many penalties, very un-Saban-like with the penalties, lack of discipline. And, before the fourth quarter, they could not do anything. Besides that 80-yard run in the first quarter, they did nothing. And then in the fourth quarter, what do you expect? It's not that surprising. The Heisman Trophy winner from the previous years made some plays, but they pulled that game out of the fire. As John mentioned, it seems like the backup quarterback, Houston Card, he seemed a little compromised too. His ankle seemed a little hobbly. He couldn't put a lot of strength into his throw. So good game. I would say if you're a Texas fan that the refs hated Texas because Alabama got away with a handful of pass interference calls. Obviously the situation in the end zone where it wasn't a safety. It wasn't intentional grounding. It wasn't a late hit. The refs really screwed that one up. Some other surprise, Pittsburgh, Tennessee went into overtime. That was a great game. Texas Tech, Houston went into overtime. Houston, they covered, but they should have won that game outright. They let Texas Tech convert 4th and 20 in the first overtime. That is unexcusable. You're only they're already at the 25-yard line. Like, how do you let them convert 4th and 20 there? That's Holgerson in a nutshell. And what else here? Oh, good win for Washington State, beating Wisconsin outright in Madison as 18-point or whatever, 17.5-point underdogs. And I'm not going to mention ECU, Old Dominion, but it was a exciting week 2 of college pigskin, and it was like it kind of made perfect timing, with the expansion announcement, which helps like the shitty conference like the Pac-12, because now like they're gonna get a bid once it goes to 12 at this point. So good for them. And then the fact that Marshall did what they did at Notre Dame, so these teams can be beat at certain points. So we'll move on. It was a good Saturday, and a lot of people didn't think it would be a great Saturday on paper, but sometimes you get the best weeks when you don't think there's going to be much juice going into the week. We had some exciting games.
Yep.
I didn't even mention Kentucky, Florida. That was a great game too.
That's true. Andy, thanks for the recap. Yeah, it really goes to show you that, never judge a book by its cover, particularly with college football scheduling. So that's the beauty of this sport. John, let's go to... No, we went to John first. So let's go to Kevin. And anything you'd like to add as far as the last week's action in college football?
Can't really add too much after these guys talk, but I did just piggyback on what Andy just said about the playoff being announced, and then all these teams going, well, we don't want to be in it. A&M, Notre Dame, they're just shitting the bed like, oh, all these extra teams. Well, just wild stuff. I was locked in on the Kentucky-Florida game. I had Kentucky, where it counts. And our buddy John, I've watched Florida 2 weeks in a row. Looks a lot like Billy Napier. The resemblance is uncanny. That's really only a thing I'm going to be adding for now. Maybe it's the haircut. I don't know. It's been great getting back into it and just realizing like kind of what all these guys just said, like some of these things just defying common sense, and the kicking being shitty and the silly penalties and just like the underdogs, like all that. And it's not I think John touched on it. It's like, these aren't flukes anymore. These guys are getting these are being outcoached, outgained, these aren't just like Hail Marys at the end and like, holy cow, a bunch of crazy things happening. Like it's a really exciting time. That's pretty much all I got. And then my last thing is they really need to stop playing college football in the state of Iowa, because it's horrendous.
Embellish on that.
They need to give back the charter or whatever you get when you like join the NCAA, and that whole state should we should just move away and go back to, well, they could leave the baseball field, the Field of Dreams thing, but the rest of it has got to go. That's just, they're like setting college football back decades.
Yeah, I mean, this was back in week 1, right? But that game was...
There's both. I think does the Hawkeyes have they have one touchdown, right?
I don't think they have one touchdown.
I think they've scored
unless they played last
points
week. I'll double check.
Games. Yeah, they lost to Iowa State.
Oh,
10-7.
Yeah. I got it. So that was one touchdown in 2 games? That's horrible.
I think they would have to score, like, correct me if I'm wrong, John, like about 100 points just to get to that North Carolina App State fourth quarter. I mean,
it's gonna take him years.
Yeah, Mr. Ferenz needs to go, man. It's time.
Yeah. The most absurd part of it all is they're laying 23 this week to Nevada with the total.
I saw that.
A total of 40. That might be the ugliest game I think I've ever seen in my life.
I saw that, John, and then I looked back because I was looking for that for the picks, and then Nevada lost to something I've never heard of, like Incarnate Word. What is that? Yeah. That sounds like a Catholic school I played.
Yeah,
it sounds like a CYO team. that you play like, St. Augustine's versus Incarnate Conception, whatever. Yeah, I saw that too. I was like, how are they giving so many points to anyone? But
I don't think they can score 23. That's the problem.
Yeah. That's crazy.
It is. I feel like we've just foreshadowed one of the picks in our group. I'm not gonna say who. I feel like there's gonna be a pick there from that game. All right, everybody. So with that in mind, let's go to the picks. And as we mentioned, there are a lot of really large point spreads in this week's action. I really can't find many great games to talk about as far as our featured games. So before we do that, let's go to the picks. Kevin, since you've been flying to start, I mean, 2-2 doesn't sound like much, but when you talk about how many upsets there were, that's a great week, in my opinion. So let's see if you can keep it going.
2-2. Yeah, I can't. This will be the last week in the lead for sure. 4-2 with all these little sharps behind me just circling.
See.
All right. So do we want all four, or do we just do college, right?
Two
First?
college.
All right. Well, I went with my against the spread sort of theory in the first week, and it did well. So I'm going to stick with that with the first pick, and I'm taking the UTSA. I think I got plus 12.5 at Texas.
Yep.
I feel like this is the typical like Sarkisian Texas. They basically beat Bama. That gets away from them, and then they lose to the following week to the Roadrunners. A team named after a cartoon. I feel like it's going to be close. I don't know. I don't think Sarkisian's going to be there for that long anyway. I don't have a good feeling. That job is tough anyway. So I'm going to take the Roadrunners in my first pick. And I couldn't decide between the second and third. I was hoping one of these guys would go first, and I would cut it out. But I'm going to take Miami. At Texas A&M, I think Jimbo's best days are behind him. And I just love the I don't know. I'm just kind of like, I'm just getting all back into it. I'm getting a little like goo gaga about the OC in Miami, the Josh Gaddis, the old Michigan guy. That whole staff. Just been reading a lot about them, and Charlie Strong's there, and I like the guy Cristobal. So I just think if Miami's going to like be back or be for real, this is the time to tell us. This is the time to go into Texas A&M, even though I know they're coming off a loss. So I'm going to take Miami plus. I think it's 6, something like that, 5 or 6.
I'm going to say 5.5. 5.5.
All right.
Yep.
That's what I got.
Yeah, you know what, Kev? I love both those picks. Good luck, my friend. Really good stuff. Yeah, I mean, very savvy. It sounds like the rest of the panel's in on it too. It'll be interesting to see how Texas A&M responds after a loss like that. I'm really, really curious. So that game's one to watch for sure. Let's go over now to Ron's picks. I'll give them to you quickly. So here's what we got. Ron in New Jersey's picks. He was 2-2 last week. Let's see what we got over here. All right. Now, will he piggyback Kevin's picks in either front? No. He's going to start with Houston, actually, giving 9.5 against Kansas at home for game number 1. For game number 2, he's going to take Oklahoma, giving 10.5 at Nebraska, who now has a new coach after they fired Scott Frost. So that'll be... that's an interesting one for me because I'm like, I don't know what to do with that. Like, that's interesting. Like, if Scott Frost was still there, I probably would have taken it. But for Ron, it's Houston giving 9.5, Oklahoma giving 10.5. We have a bonus pick too, and Ron's bonus pick. This will not count toward the contest, but he selects Air Force giving 14.5 at Wyoming Air Force Academy to go with Houston and Oklahoma as the 2 official picks for Week 3 of college football. All right, so now that brings us to John in Connecticut, 2-2 last week. Let's see if we can keep that mojo going. John, you have the floor for Week 3 picks.
All right, Dave. So we'll make it quick here. I foreshadowed one of my picks earlier. We'll go with the Fresno State Bulldogs plus 12.5 at USC. as I mentioned last week, I thought Stanford really moved the ball well on USC's defense. Even in the first game, Rice was averaging like 5 yards a carry in the first half against USC. They had like 3 drives that went down by the goal line, and it kind of messed up from there. They had some pick sixes in the second half, so that game was a shit show for them. But still, the point is they were able to move the ball. I don't think Fresno will have any problem going up and down the field, putting up some points. Jake Haener and Jordan Mims is, a terrific running back, and they have a great stable of receivers. So they're going to put up a bunch of points. I don't know if they're going to win. I think USC is going to put up a lot of points too. Caleb Williams has been just electric so far, and Addison's been what he's, lived up to be at the moment. So I think it'll be a pretty high-scoring game. I think the over is probably in play here too. But I think both teams are going to get to at least 30 points. So, if it's like 45-35 USC, you're a winner with Fresno plus 12.5. And also with this kind of game, the back door is going to be wide open. If Fresno's down 17 or 18 late, you just get that late touchdown and you're going to get it. But I think this will be a really competitive game. So I was leaning this way, anything over 10. So certainly I will take the 12.5. Give me Fresno plus 12.5 for game number 1. And then game 2, you might regret this, but Scott Frost is gone. So we're going to go with the Cornhuskers plus 11 at home against Oklahoma. Okay, it was a really horrible performance against Georgia Southern, but the look ahead, like the game of the year line, when I looked at this before the season, it was like Oklahoma -3 or -4. So you're telling me that it's gone 7 points towards Oklahoma's direction since the start of the season. I know Nebraska has looked like shit, and Frost is gone, but I think they have a talented team. Casey Thompson has looked really good. Their offense can put up a bunch of points. Oklahoma, this is a team who was trailing to Kent State 3-0 near halftime last week. And they ended up having a good second half, and they won like 33-3 or something. But still, really not that impressive. This is their first true road game. I think, Nebraska does nothing but play close games. Like, why would this be any different without Frost? So I think it's a little overreaction to that. And, if this was like 5 or 6, I would stay away. But 11, I think there's value here on Nebraska. So give me Nebraska plus 11 and Fresno plus 12.5. 2 home dogs. I'm sorry, Fresno's at home. 2 double-digit dogs here for college football week number 3.
All right, John, thank you very much for the picks. Good luck, of course. Now let's go to Andy in Seattle, and we're ready for your college picks when you are.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I'm going to do checker on a checker with John and go head-to-head with Ron. I'm also on board with Nebraska. I also see it at plus 11, too. I know Ron has it minus 10.5, but Dave, with your show, you could
I'm going to go with
both.
I'm going
to have
11.
Ron minus 10.5 and John and I plus 11. It's your show. But
plus 11's fine. Let's go with it.
But it's like, John nailed it. Like, the line opened up at like 4.5 on Sunday. Then they fire Frost. Then the line minus 10.5. Like, Nebraska getting blown up was never the issue. Nebraska getting blown out never. It's just they just always found ways to lose. And everything John said, bingo. They'll be able to move the ball downfield. Casey Thompson's good. Their defense is their weakest link. So, I think regardless of what you think of Scott Frost, and if you think they've been unshackled from this horrible coach, then they should be ready to play. And then if you think, well, it's not going to make a difference anyway, they're still not that good of a team. Well, their identity is they're going to play and lose at the last minute. So I'm all on board with Nebraska getting the 11. I'm also on board with Kevin's pick with Meat. I love them against Texas. Meat versus Army was another good game last Saturday. But anyway, give me Nebraska for game number 1. Game number 2, I'm going to take Texas Tech getting 10 at NC State. This is an anti-NC State pick. As you know, we picked against them week 1 against ECU. I watched the entire Texas Tech Houston game. Now, Texas Tech is playing their backup quarterback, Donovan Smith, because Tyler Slew has a shoulder injury. And I liked what I saw out of this Donovan Smith character. Dual threat. He ran it. He threw it. He's big. And I think 10 points is a lot. If you're, back doors wide open. I'm not a big ACC guy. I've never been a big NC State guy. This Texas Tech team has that OC Kitteridge from Western Kentucky. So I think he's going to work some magic. This Donovan Smith guy probably only going to get a little better with more reps with the first team this week. So Red Raiders me +10. And 2 bonus picks real quick. John touched on it, the USC Fresno State over. If you got it on Sunday, the over was only 66.5. It's now up to 73.5. It's probably only going to go up. So if you paid attention earlier, you'd have gotten it a much more feasible number. Having said that, I still think it's going to go over the current 73. And another quick bonus is Georgia State team total over, because they're playing Charlotte. And all Charlotte does is allow their opponents to just score 40 points or more. And I see that trend continuing. Georgia State, they could be their own worst enemy, but I think they'll be able to score whatever the team total is. I don't even know it. I'm just betting it blind on Saturday. Team total Georgia State, the other bonus.
Andy,
Nice.
look at you with the totals. That's rare for Andy to do total bets. That's really interesting to me. Have you come around on totals? That's very
No, I just picked my spots. John, we text offline about over-unders and stuff, and I just if you don't have a good feeling on certain games, and I've watched way too much Charlotte football this year.
Mm-hmm.
And
God, why would you do that?
That's
another guy. That's another coach who's got to go. I mean, they're horrible.
Yeah, Will Healy doesn't have his defense on board for whatever reason. So, and I watched that Maryland Charlotte last week too. His brother light up the Charlotte 49ers. So this week Georgia State, and then the Fresno USC game I think is just going to be a track meet. Fresno State did not have a good defense. They couldn't stop Oregon State, and USC let David Shaw look relatively modern for stretches. So I think you're going to see a 45-38 type of game.
Andy, I'm going to give you the total from per Bovada for Georgia State. 40 points. 40 points.
Oh, yeah.
Taking it? Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. It sounds very gettable. Georgia's a pretty solid team. So, all right, folks. So let's go look at our featured games for the NCAA. Let's see if this button works right. Let's see. No. Not even close. Not even close. Let me see if I can fix that. Hold on a sec. Goodness gracious. I'm going to go find it. Just give me a second here. NCAA featured games are here. There they are. Not much to talk about. You can see it right here. I mean, it's really just a matter of BYU, Oregon. That's going to be a good game. We mentioned Miami, Texas A&M. I thought that was going to be a good game. Fresno State, USC. I think you all are calling it for the over. That will be a fun game. I think that'll be a good one to watch. I'm looking forward to that one. And I think there might be more than that. But let's go back to the panel and see what you think about some of this week's action. I mean, we've kind of covered a lot of it already, so we don't have to get too deep into this. But back to John for a second. Anything you wanted to note specifically from this weekend's slate?
Yeah, it's another one that doesn't look great on paper, but like we just saw, sometimes that'll give you the best juice for the weekend. The BYU Oregon game is interesting. Not really sure what to make of Oregon because they played arguably the best team in the country, Georgia, and then, an FCS, Patsy. So not really sure. BYU has looked really good. South Florida is garbage. That was a terrible pick by us on the first week. Although I will say I'm going to blame it on the lightning delay. I think they were ready to go, at like 4:00 when the game started, and there was like a 3-hour lightning delay, and that just killed the momentum. And that's what I'm going to stick with for any of my losing picks that have a lightning delay. So that's what I'm going to blame it on. But in any event, BYU has looked really solid. So, it's a toss-up game. I mean, it's 3.5 the spread. I would definitely lean BYU with that spread, with that half point, just because they're more experienced in terms of the, their players and with the coaching staff compared to Oregon, who's still figuring it out under Lanning, and then plus Bo Nix. We know you don't know what you're going to get from him always, and it could be good Bo or bad Bo. So I would lean towards BYU with those points, getting the 3.5. Some other interesting games here. Let's see. Yeah, Mississippi State, LSU, an SEC game that night. I don't know about this one. The line is really fishy. Mississippi State -2. Like, they're just begging you to take Mississippi State. I don't know if I'm going to fall into that trap. Brian Kelly, it was a disaster, his first game against Florida State, but I think they might turn it around. Like, that's just begging you to take Mississippi State. I might end up going with LSU in that one. Michigan State, Washington's another interesting game. I would lean Washington here, only giving a field goal. I haven't, I've been impressed with Washington. We talked about it on our previous show, the Penix DeBoer connection has really looked good so far, and, we'll expect that to continue. So I'm on board with Washington. I'm not a fan of Peyton Thorne. I haven't been impressed with him. That first game against Western Michigan, they got the cover, but it was just by the skin of their teeth. And I'm not a fan of Michigan State and not in this matchup anyway. I'll like Washington giving the 3. I'm on board with the UTSA pick. Yeah, so the teams that got the upsets last week, so you're kind of on, you play the reverse of that. So Troy getting 12.5 against App State. That would have been my third pick if we had done 3 picks. I think their defense is good enough to keep it close. So that would have been a pick of mine. UTSA, after getting all those points after Texas has that emotional game against Bama. So that would be it. That's another good one. And then Marshall laying 17 at Bowling Green. I wouldn't take Marshall for sure. I mean, I'm not sure I want to take Bowling Green either, but that's kind of the thing with these upsets. You kind of go the other way the following week. And then Georgia Southern, they're getting 11.5 at UAB. I think everyone will be on Georgia Southern in that game. I think maybe UAB is the play. It's oh my God, Georgia Southern just beat Nebraska. Now they're getting 11.5. Well, I think there might be a reason for that. And then Texas Tech, NC State. I'm on board with Texas Tech in that matchup. I like them getting the 10. And then one more I'll mention here. SMU and Maryland. You want to see a game with some points. This is the game you want to go to. So bet the over on here. You got Toilia Tagovailoa. I'm only going to say that once. And all those receivers at Maryland going up against an SMU defense that's not great. Then SMU has Mordecai and all their weapons that can put up just a ton of points. The over-under 73, and I would definitely bet the over on this one. And I think SMU, I saw the line's 3.5. I would go with SMU at 3.5. If it goes under that, I probably wouldn't. But that half is key. So, yeah, some pretty interesting games this week. The early slate is not really good. Oklahoma, Nebraska is okay, but the rest of them are just kind of meh. UConn getting 47.5 at Michigan. That's an interesting line. Hawaii covered 51 against them, so maybe UConn, if they can score 10 points, I think they'll cover. But that's a big if. So, pretty good slate of just nothing great in terms of top 10 teams playing against each other. But hey, you know what? It's college football. We'll take all the Saturdays that we can get here.
Would you take that theory as far as teams coming off of a big loss and teams coming off a big win to the Wisconsin game? Because Wisconsin's laying 37 against New Mexico State. Where would you?
Oh God, yeah, that game is just brutal.
Yeah.
I would go the Andy route in this one, and I would play New Mexico State team total under. They are not going to score in this game unless it's a play. I
like that. Okay, cool. All right, Kevin, and anything as far as wait, let me go to Andy first. Andy first. Andy, as far any quick hitters on the upcoming weekend in college football?
Yeah, Purdue, Syracuse in the early morning out here. I'll probably play Syracuse. It's because I hate Jeff Brom, and Purdue's defense isn't all that good. Oh, you know what's funny? I was just thinking, I already made the picks, but I love Penn State against Auburn. I hate James Franklin, but I don't think Brian Harsin and the ex-LSU quarterback Finley are that good either. And even though I hate Penn State, I think their offense is gonna take care of business even on the road. All right, so probably just have to squeeze my nose and take Penn State against Auburn. That's a pretty good game. I'll actually be at the Michigan State game, tailgating at 10 a.m.
Sounds like fun.
I will be drunk off my rear end and my third dummy by the time the game starts. But that'll be fun. There's like 20 of us going.
Wow. And
right now my line's 3.5, and I'll either buy a half point, maybe it'll go down, or just take a money line with a couple other teams or something. But I'm at the same mindset as John. I don't like the Michigan State quarterback. Michigan State's best receiver is questionable, and Mel Tucker won't say one way or the other if he's playing. So I'll probably take the Dogs, the Huskies, Washington. And then, Texas UTSA is a sneaky good game. Fresno State USC is a really good game. That's basically about it. Oh yeah, for the family, and we all like Tulane. They're 2-0, and they need to get to 7-5 to win the bet, 6-6 to tie the bet. They're 14-point underdogs at Kansas State, but it's Kansas State. I think they could win that game. Why not? And then to just piggyback on the whole letdown situation, I'm not touching Colorado State because Colorado State is a very atrocious team, although I like their coach and eventually he'll get the pieces together, but he has nothing to work with. But I wouldn't take Washington State giving 17.5 against Colorado State, because Washington State, I don't know how they handle the feeling of such a big victory at Wisconsin, and now they have to tone it back and take care of business against a team that they should easily take care of. But you never know. They're definitely still partying. And then there's one more game. Washington State. No, if it comes to me, it comes to me. If not, we move on.
Cool beans. I think I would like to take a chance on that spread against Iowa. I'm trying to remember what the number was. Let me see.
Nevada is so bad.
Yeah,
they're really bad.
They're
but
bad.
See, Iowa, how are they going to score 23 points? It's going to be a fascinating game to watch.
Yeah.
Maybe just not bet on. That's what I will say.
Yeah, I think that's a good call.
Involved in that.
I will say one last thing, and I don't let me do it again. I will, because I think they play Hawaii. I bet on a New Mexico State game, week 0, week 1, and week 2.
Oh.
Yeah. We all have our teams that we sometimes place a bet on. It happens. You're going to bet some shitty teams over the course of the season. But one more bet. Alabama first half against Louisiana Monroe. I don't know what it is. The game spread is 49. So the first half might be 35. I don't know.
Let me get that.
I would say 28, I would lay it. Maybe even 31, I'm laying that, because they got their ass chewed this week, and the Louisiana Monroe is not going to be providing any resistance in this matchup.
John, I do want to give you before we get to that, I want to give you the team total for New Mexico State in the game against Wisconsin. 3.5. Now look, I think that's
wait.
You can get an under for that.
No, that doesn't add up though, Dave, because the spread is 37 and then the total is 46.5. So that would have to be it can't be 3. It's got to be 7 or 8 or something.
The total for Wisconsin is 41.5. Their points.
Did the game total go down? Did the game total go down to 45?
The game total is 46. The spread is 37.5. So
Yeah, so that doesn't add up. So the spreads, they have to match up. Like the team totals have to match the spreads.
Yeah, usually they do.
Like the difference between the two teams has to match the spread, but then the has to match the total for the game. I might be the only one who notices this, but like that's how they do it.
45.
Yeah, Bovada is also a shitty book too.
True.
Yeah, that's
so
fair.
maybe
That's
it's not
fair.
exactly accurate,
Yeah.
but yeah.
I just don't know
I
how
would
to
have thought
get.
it would have been like 7.
I would, if there's a way, Andy, if you know how to get those same numbers from Action, let me know, because like I'd rather do that. I just don't exactly know how to do that yet.
I'll pull it up, Dave, while you're.
Okay.
You need to go to Kevin. So.
But yeah, let's go ahead and go to Kevin. The team
John giving a master class on the numbers right there.
I buy it.
I am an accounting major, so.
I love it, John. No, that makes a lot of sense,
fantastic.
right? You know, like the team totals have to add up to the over/under.
I feel like John. I feel like you should be like in Vegas for the football season. Like you should just relocate there, and like just like grind it out. Get like a bankroll and just grind it out, and then kind of.
If you're bankrolling me, sure, I'm there.
Nice.
Well, it depends on what we're talking about, but yeah, I could. I mean, the coach and I already told the kids only one of them's going to college, so we can work on something.
Well, while we sorted it out.
Yeah, these guys. I mean, I'm just a clown now. Compared to these two, but I like what Andy said. I think Harzan in Auburn is the next sort of. I'm waiting to start the watch list on him, the next big coach. It's going to take a while because he's got some patsies, I think, coming up in the schedule. But I'd like it to start this week. Going down to Penn State, and my nights, like I think I told you guys that 2 weeks ago, I'm with you guys at night, so I'm pumped. I think it's Michigan State, Washington, Miami, and then like the Fresno with these guys. Just watching those 3 games would probably be where I'm at. And I don't know, Andy, is the third gummy, is that recommended like on Saturday? Like what time? Because I still got
so first gummy will be like at 9 a.m. Second gummy will be like at 2:00, and then I'll probably have one like right before halftime.
Because I've got a stash from an old injury. It's still in the closet somewhere. I made
10 milligrams though. Like that's.
I wasn't sure what I was doing the first time. I should need your number for this, because I remember I took one, did nothing, and then my buddy who sent me to get him, he's like, take another one. You're a lot bigger than I am. So I took the third one, and he's like, you took the third. I'd never taken any of these things before. And he's like, you took a third one? And I was like, I don't know. And I thought there was nothing happening. And then the next morning, my wife was like, what were you doing last night? And I was like, I don't know. I was just watching YouTube, and I think I was watching like stand up, like Tom Segura. She goes, I've never heard you laugh like that in my entire life. Apparently I was just watching like Netflix stand up comedy for hours, just like literally pissing my pants. So those 3 games, and my last one is, I noticed this one. I'm sure you guys are probably either on it or either that you didn't mention it makes me kind of nervous. But I think North Dakota State at Arizona, then they're, kind of like, I don't know. I think Arizona's kind of trash. The coach is Jed Fish, who does sound like a stand-up comedian's kind of name. I don't think he's ever was a head coach before Arizona. It kind of shows. But the North Dakota State, I just like that. And I think it's like a pick 'em, so it's not like I'm shedding any light. But I'd love to see another one of these lesser known schools beat one of these name programs. So I'll be looking in on that one too. I think that's at night also. So that's where I'll be at. I'll be with Andy and Spirit on the gummy train.
That Notre Dame, or not Notre Dame, but the Leach Brian Kelly matchup. Whoa, that's hilarious.
Yeah. That's like
he's already getting shit from the media down there. Like it's not going to fly what he was doing at Notre Dame. Did
you see him? He said that, was it a woman? I can't remember the reporter. She showed up late to the first press conference after the first game, and he's like, "You're late. What's up?" And she's like, "If you start winning, I'll show up on time." Oh, that was awesome. And he has his sense of humor sucks, and it just doesn't work. and really
nothing's
down
going to
there.
beat his. Nothing's ever going to beat his first appearance at the basketball game where he got his Cajun accent and he's like, "We're having a great time, and I haven't won all my games yet. I'm here with my family tonight." That was like the most bizarre thing I've ever seen in my life.
I think were we calling that the Foghorn Leghorn? Like that accent? Speaking, we were doing Bugs Bunny before. I think that was. I saw that clip. That was
It was crazy. And anyway, Dave, I did look it up, and for whatever reason, you're right. Like in this scenario, it's 3.5 from New Mexico State, so it's 41.5 for Wisconsin, 3.5 from New Mexico State, and that adds up to 45. The game total is 46.5, so there's like 1.5 of like extra. Like it should add up to the 46.5. But they're giving you 1.5 here, so. Yeah.
So what does that mean? What is Tommy supposed to bet on that one? There's got to be some kind of angle.
Yeah, I mean under 3.5. Like if this was played in between the 20s, they're not going to score. But like there's always the worry that like, Graham Mertz will throw a stupid interception and they'll be at the 10-yard line, and okay, like they can find 10 yards into the end zone.
A muffed punt.
Yeah, or that too. Yeah, a muffed punt. Yeah,
that's what happened last week. UTEP muffed the punt. That's the only rebound New Mexico State scored because they got the ball at the 2-yard line. Muffed punt.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, I would if you had to bet, I would say under, but I wouldn't like with just a regular, a unit bet or something. I mean, for fun, if you want to put it on under 3.5 just to root for a team not to score, sure, why not?
I mean, you're going to be in that one for a while, whichever way you go on it. So that's the one thing you have to try.
Or it could be over early. Like if they return the opening kickoff for a touchdown, just walk out of the room.
Didn't that happen with UConn one year?
Last year against Clemson, they returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown. That was like the only touchdown they had the whole game.
Got the job done, John. I remember it well. Yep. All right, folks, let's get over to the NFL and NFL action. Really exciting. What a way to start the year. It started with a monster performance by the Buffalo Bills against the Rams at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood. Just a huge win for the Bills. Now, I don't know what that means for the rest of the season, but that was a great performance. Even though the first half was sloppy, the rest of the weekend was also pretty exciting. You had some close finishes in a whole lot of games. A lot of dumb decisions, a lot of bad mistakes by a lot of teams. The Steelers were pretty much gifted. I got to tell you, I think they were gifted that win against Cincinnati. I mean, look, give it to them for what they did on defense, but I mean, you missed a field goal twice. I think they missed an extra point, if I remember correctly, at the end of regulation, the Bengals, to force the overtime, and then they missed a field goal when they had it in field goal and plenty of range. There's very close, but they missed it. It's like you can't do much more than that and still expect to win the game. And so the Steelers finally, after almost the entire overtime session, won. I mean, it was a fun game it was a wild game to watch, but man, ugly as hell. A lot of good action. I'm not gonna get into too much detail. Let's just go back. Let's actually start with Andy. Andy, let's get your thoughts on last week's action. There was a lot of action. We were watching some of that together on Thursday. But what'd you think of the week in the NFL?
Yeah, Dave. Won't really touch too much about the Rams and the Bills. I mean, the Bills look like a juggernaut, and the Rams just looked a little spotty. They did not look defensively cohesive as you would have expected, but maybe Josh Allen is just that good right now. Cooper Kupp, what are you going to say? He's a machine, him and Stafford, but I think the Rams will be all right, although I might take Atlanta, foreshadowing the picks because they're getting 10.5. But Dave, I will say this, even though I like to kind of make fun of Tomlin, but he's still a hell of a coach, especially when he's an underdog in his own division. He's actually an underdog again against the Patriots, which is, I might have to take them. But I will say this, last year they were so stale, and it was because of Roethlisberger. They just look so much fresher. And I know it's Mitch Trubisky, but you know how Belichick is going to get rid of the guy maybe 1 year too soon? Roethlisberger should have been gone 2 years ago. They let Roethlisberger rot in manifest and mutate his shit for an extra year. And it showed last year, even though we won that dopey 8.5 over, but with a tie. But they just look better. They look better. That defense, which was a joke last year, look good now. Are they going to force 5 turnovers a game? I don't think so, because some of those interceptions were kind of fluky. I don't think the Bengals are going to look as bad as they did against Dallas. I actually love Cincinnati against Dallas this week. But, that was a good game, crazy game. Houston and Indianapolis, that was a wonky game too. Lovie Smith what is Lovie Smith doing in overtime on 4th and 3 from like the 47? Like, go ahead and win that game. Like, go ahead and win that game. And I had Texas or Houston +7. Go ahead and try to win that game. Coward. And they should have won that game. Mills, I think, fumbled midway through the 4th quarter. That kind of opened the door for the Indianapolis comeback. And those games, AFC South, you just never know. I didn't watch any of Washington, Jacksonville. I watched obviously a lot of the Patriots, Dolphins game. Something's a little off with New England. It was Tua. They let Tua get away with some sketchy throws. McDaniels, but not that McDaniels. The Dolphin McDaniels. They went for it on 4th and 7 with 30 seconds left from like the 40-yard line, and Waddle touchdown pass in between 3 Patriot defenders. Just one of those games. First drive of the game, New England's got it like at the 15-yard line of Miami, and Mac Jones threw a pick, but it definitely was pass interference, but no excuses. And then 2 crazy plays for the Dolphins accounted for their touchdowns in the first half. I think the Patriots will be okay, but the Dolphins are a live team now. That's a sneaky good game this week. Baltimore and the Dolphins. Good for the Giants. I know JB was watching, then he wasn't watching, then he was watching, then he wasn't watching, but he was watching. Good win for the Giants. They're up 13-0, and it's like they're down 13-0, and they're such a boring team. But they had a great second half. Saquon Barkley looked like old Saquon Barkley. Now, can he do it for the entire year? I don't think so. Daniel Jones still looks like trash. Fat Randy Bullock missed a field goal. So everything kind of had to go perfectly for the Giants to steal that game in Nashville, but they did. So credit to them. Baltimore Jets was a bore. What else? San Francisco, Chicago, I did not watch too much of it, but it was like played in like a monsoon. Trey Lance didn't play all that well. The Sunday night game, I thought Dallas would be ready to go. I thought Tom Brady would be a little rusty. I thought Dallas pass rush would, bother Brady like Brady gets bothered when he doesn't get time. He doesn't like to move around. The Saints do it. The Jets used to do it. The Ravens do it. And the Cowboys actually did do it. I mean, Micah Parsons had a great game, but Dallas's offense was like the dud of the week. The absolute dud of the week. Fuck you, Dallas. Fuck you. All you hear about is the plethora of weapons they have, and they just absolutely laid a freaking egg. So that was Sunday night, laid an egg. Packers, Minnesota. Minnesota looked very good in that first half. They kind of went stale in the second half. Aaron Rodgers will be fine. They don't play in the preseason. As I saw John tweet about it, like, just throw the ball to Dobbs every time. We all know him. He was at Nevada for 2 years with Carson Strong. Like, he's going to be a great receiver. Packers will be fine. Lions, Eagles was like a crazy back and forth game. No defense whatsoever. That was entertaining. Eagles might be Eagles strike me as a team that are they're going to score at will against the teams they're supposed to win, and then they might lay eggs against, formidable competition. Kansas City, Arizona went exactly how we thought it would. Fuck Cliff Kingsbury. Fade him as long as you can. And the Chiefs might have something to prove because they're like, oh, Tyreek Hill's gone. That offense lost a bit, but I'm sorry. You still got Patrick Mahomes and Juju Smith-Schuster and Meacham. They'll be fine. all right, the Chiefs will be fine. They looked all world on Sunday in front of Nance and Romo. And then I'll let the other guys talk about Seattle, Denver. But, I mean, it's a hot take. It's a reactionary league, as we all like to do it. But Nathaniel Hackett, man, you couldn't be more clueless. But also Denver, like, don't fumble at the 1 yard line twice either. And good for Geno Smith. All he does is get laughed at. Good for Geno. Someone holding a Seahawks plus 5.5 over 5.5 win ticket. We're 1-0.
Yep. It was a very, very pesky line going into that Seahawks game. Denver giving 6.5 on the road in Seattle. Just, you say it out loud, and it's like, I know Seattle's bad now, but that's just, for a team that really hasn't proven anything yet with Russ in on the team, I just thought that was a very interesting number, and I didn't touch it. But I'm just like, I didn't feel comfortable with either end of it, really. So, John, let's get your recap of last week's action as well.
Yeah, that was a great witching hour for the early action on Sunday. I mean, you had like 5 games that were – I thought Red Zone was going to do like the quad box, whatever, for all 4 of them, but they staggered it and they took you from one finish to the other, which I don't know. I kind of like it when they're like rushing to see all of it live. But yeah, the Steelers and Bengals, I mean, it was reminiscent of the Bengals-Packers game from last year when no one can make a kick. Both sides just, epic failures in the kicking game. But yeah, Dave, you're right. The Steelers defense really won it from them. Burrow 4 interceptions and a fumble. That's probably the worst game he's played of his career. I mean, he's not going to play like that again. Obviously credit to the Steelers defense. I wonder what odds you could have gotten on Minkah Fitzpatrick scoring the first touchdown of the NFL season. I bet it would be pretty significant with the pick 6. But the Steelers offense just enough to get the job done. I mean, we'll see. They're not going to get 5 turnovers every week, but hey, a win's a win. So that was a good start for them. You had the Panthers and the Browns, another game where the line just like screamed taking the Panthers. Oh, Baker Mayfield at home, pick 'em against Jacoby Brissett. This looks easy. And of course, like the Browns basically dominated most of the game. And then the Panthers finally got some good plays going. That long pass to Robbie Anderson. And then, the Browns end up winning at the end with a 57-yarder. Their kicker he's going to be a good one from LSU, Cade York. That was a good draft pick by them. So they get the win. That was another witching hour game. The Falcons falconing like they do, up 26-10 in the fourth quarter. Just the same old shit with these new coaches, new everything. Same old shit. Falcons can't hold a lead in the fourth quarter. They had the Saints just dead. And Winston leads them back, and they end up getting a 1-point win. And they're still using Taysom Hill. So even though Sean Payton's not there, you still get to see those stretch plays with Taysom Hill each and every week. Yeah, the Niners was the Niners-Bears game. That was an easy under once you saw the weather forecast. I mean, that was just as easy as it gets. Trey Lance, still lots of questions about him. I mean, I'm not going to judge him off of one game in a monsoon, but not great so far from what we've seen. We'll see if he can get it on track against Seattle this week. Andy asked the question, what is Lovie Smith doing? I'll say, even to expand on that, what is Lovie Smith doing coaching in the NFL as a head coach? It makes no sense. But, yeah, he played for the tie, which is so stupid. It's week 1. Like, go for it, man. Like, these coaches, I just don't understand. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen to you? You've been fired like 10 times already. You're going to get fired again? Like, who cares? Like, go for it. But yeah, the Colts, they pulled a tie out of their ass for sure. So they got to be happy about that. The late action. Yeah, the Packers it set the tone for the entire game. Christian Watson dropping that pass. Like, you spent the whole offseason like designing the perfect play to start your year. Rodgers just throws a perfect pass out there, 40 yards down the field, right into his hands, and he drops it. It would have been a touchdown. And it just set the complexion for the game. Like, then he was just kind of, not looking their way after that point. The rookie receivers, and there's just a lot of miscommunication. They were missing their tackles. they got stopped on the goal line. So it was just a bad game all around. I think they'll bounce back. But, we've talked about this before with them. Like, they don't play in the preseason. So, like, the game one is almost essentially like an extension of the preseason. So that was rough. Yeah, the Cowboys, they're in for a rough season without Dak Prescott. And, Mike McCarthy calling plays, it's not a good combination right there. They're just a complete disgrace. The Bucs were ripe for the picking in that game, and they just couldn't do it. And then, Monday night, I mean, my God, you can clearly tell, like, Nathaniel Hackett, like, he fleeced over the Denver Broncos, that's for sure, because he was never involved in, like, game decisions or play calling with the Packers. He was just involved in, like, game planning for the week. Like, Matt LaFleur calls every single play for the Packers. And clearly this showed, because they get to the 50-yard line with 1 minute and 20 seconds left, and they have 3 timeouts, and they end up kicking a 64-yard field goal, like settling for a 64-yard field goal. Absolute buffoonery. Like, you could have fired the guy on the spot. Like, if I owned the Denver Broncos, I might have fired him after one game, because how's it going to get any better from this? Like, it just can't. Because he's going to make these. He's not going to make a similar decision like this, but it's always going to be, like, in the back of your mind, like, he's going to pick the wrong option when giving all the scenarios. And it's just basic clock management at that point. Like, you want to keep pushing the ball down the field. And, and they say, we didn't want to keep Geno Smith any time. Like, there's 10 seconds left. I just didn't understand that. Of course, like, everyone was just screaming at their TV, and it was really bad. But Denver really dominated the game in terms of yardage. They had the 2 fumbles, but sometimes, football, it bounces in weird ways. And it didn't happen for the Broncos with some of those turnovers, and it led to that just terrific decision. And we'll see where they go from here, but certainly not a good debut for Hackett there with that decision.
John, how old is Hackett?
I don't know. I mean, he's got to be maybe in his 40s, early 50s. I don't know.
He can't. It doesn't seem like he's that old, but he coached like an old guy with that kind of strategy. Like, that's not
right. Right. He took it, like, right from the Lovie Smith playbook.
Yeah.
That's something that he would do. Yeah.
Yeah. Just a terrible coaching job by Hackett. I was just as shocked. It was just unbelievable, really. Okay, let's go to Kevin. Let's get your thoughts on last week's action.
I just looked him up. He's 19. He's young. He's younger than I am.
That's crazy.
He's like 43.
That's inexcusable. That's inexcusable.
Which is kind of old.
If you're gonna be wrong in the Chargers coach direction and be overly aggressive. Don't be that kind of wrong. Don't be stuffy and old and stodgy wrong. That kind of wrong is just, everybody does that. All the retreads do that. Like, don't be them. That's very disappointing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, these guys, I'm not going to. Well, I'm going to come up with an angle to contribute on the recap. These guys do. I can't do anything better than they do. I was going to start doing like live updates from the Britt Reed trial, but he copped a plea, so that's out. And then, but maybe I could start doing live updates from the Brett Favre deposition, because that's going to be coming up soon.
Wait. There's a Brett Favre deposition right now?
At some point.
You think?
But I'm not getting me to Mississippi is not likely. So I'll come up with something. The Giants, those are my lucky to win that one, and this week is the prototypical game that they would lose. We might get into that a little later. So if I'm lucky enough to keep joining you guys, I'll come up with a better angle than this, because with something different, because these guys got the recaps covered.
All right, it's well said.
But maybe I could be our court reporter, because I mean that's just inevitable in this league.
Yeah, these days, absolutely. The courtroom is getting just as much action as the football field. I dig it. Okay, so in that case,
Andy, I went back when I was you had to come up with all these different things. We had a guy who at NBC Sports, this sounds horrible, but it was like 2006 or 7 when we restarted, when they got football again, and he was the guy. He would put together the slideshows of the cheerleaders. That was like his job. Like he would he would put together, but so like everybody, I'm like, everyone's got a role, dude. And yours is to just scan Getty images and put together slideshows. And it was the most clicked on. People clicked on that more than they clicked on the Notre Dame stuff. So I'm not going to say I'm doing a cheerleader report, but I'll come up with something different.
Oh my goodness. Wild and crazy. Well, I mean, listen, I believe it. But anyway, with that all set up, let's go to the NFL picks. It is going to be a pretty interesting weekend. I mean, not as many paper matchups as we saw last week, but let's just get right to the picks. I don't want to waste too much more time. So we'll start with John. And some of these point spreads are really interesting, John. So I'm ready for you when you are with the NFL week number 2 picks.
All right, Dave. We're going to, opposite of my college picks, we're going to go with 2 favorites this week for the NFL. I'm going to start with the Ravens, -3.5 at Miami. I think, number one, this is a coaching mismatch. Harbaugh against Mike McDaniel. Can we call him a hipster? He kind of looks like a hipster to me. I don't know. But he certainly outcoached Belichick on Sunday. The hipster got the best of old Bill. But, yeah, I think, Miami was impressive, their defense anyway, but I don't think the Patriots offense is too much to write home about at the moment. They got some turnovers. I think the Ravens secondary is the strength of their team, and that's what the Dolphins want to do is throw the ball around. And I think the Ravens will be able to slow that down. And I think this is a little bit too short in terms of the spread. I think the Ravens can win this by 6 points or so. There's a little bit of a revenge angle. If you remember last year, Baltimore had a horrible game on a Thursday night in Miami. I don't think they've forgotten about that. And I think Baltimore, with a fully healthy Baltimore team, which they clearly weren't last year, I think is better than this Dolphins team. I'm still not 100% sold on Tua. And like I said, I think it's a good matchup for the Ravens defense. And Lamar will, they'll do their thing and score enough to get the win. Call it like 24-17 or something like that, 24-14. I think the Ravens will win this one and get the cover. So we'll go Baltimore -3.5. And then game 2, I almost never do this, but I'm going to take the Packers. Give me -10 over the Bears. LaFleur is 8-0 against the spread and straight up after a loss in his career. Like every time they lose, they will come back and put together a good performance. Rodgers owns the Bears, as we know. Like I said before, I think just numerous things went against Green Bay and just kind of snowballed in the game on Sunday. I think they're going to look much crisper and sharp at home. And I think the Bears, it was just kind of a fluke game against the Niners with that weather, and they just got some things going in the second half. And I don't think it's going to be sustainable. I think the Packers defense is still good, and I think they're going to shut down Fields, and I think Rodgers will get on track. That stat I gave about LaFleur, he's had more than 8 losses in his career, but I did see the stat somewhere. It's like maybe after a 10-point loss or something. Regardless, he's usually very, very good after a loss. So we will bank on that, and we'll bank on Rodgers having an MVP-like performance that he's capable of, and we'll take Green Bay -10 at home against the Bears, and Ravens -3.5 at home against the Dolphins.
All right, John, thanks very much for the picks. Good luck. And moving ahead, we're going to go over to Kevin on the Cape. I am wondering if you're going to take, if anyone's going to take something from the Thursday game. Let's go find out. Kevin, we're ready for your picks when you are.
Oh, good gracious. I was hoping that these guys would just take that picks and I would be out and go last. But
no,
I think
listen, if you want to go last, we could. I could move ahead to some other picks and move.
No, that would be cowardly now.
All right, very well.
Can't do that.
Let's do it.
So I'm going to go with. Well, I guess I'm going to go back to a week 1 that worked. I don't know. I probably just keep going this way until it doesn't, and go against the Jets. So I'm going to take the Browns. I think it's like -6. I think I saw it this morning. Or
5.5.
Yeah, and it's all right. Sure. Yeah, it's more of an anti-Jets pick, but I'm just going to keep doing. I'm going to run with that for a while. And for number 2, oh man, I'm going to take the Raiders I think it's the same kind of thing. 5 or 6. Kind of, yeah, for no other reason than I like the quarterback over there, and it's sort of I don't even know if it's in Vegas, but is it in Vegas? So maybe
Yep.
Maybe John's kind of aura in town can help me win that one.
Yeah, it is in Vegas. I was thinking of going to that one, but it's like $250 for the nosebleed. So I was like, nah, I'm gonna pay less and get club seats for UNLV North Texas. Thank you very much.
Well, yeah, and yeah, you need to take that $250 and you can do that for better use. Go do one of those numbers things around blackjack table or something. But yeah, so that's it. Raiders and the Browns.
Okay. All right. I like it. I think they're pretty savvy picks myself. So thanks very much, Kevin. Good luck. Let's continue with Ron's picks. Now here's a funny thing about fading the Jets. It seems like a popular thing to do, and I'll tell you what. From what I'm seeing so far, it appears that Ron is also on the fade the Jets bandwagon, because last week he faded the Jets, and this week he's going to do it again. So his first pick, Browns giving 5.5 at home against the Jets. No need to spend a whole lot of time with explanation. So that's pick number 1 for Ron in New Jersey. Game number 2 is going to be a very interesting call, and I think it's a decent play. We'll see if it's true. But he selects the Panthers getting 1.5 at the Giants after the Giants had that big, very, and I'm going to repeat, very unlikely win against Tennessee last week. So an interesting idea. There's always a chance of overreaction. So Ron's going to play this the other way. Going to go Carolina plus 1.5 to go with Browns minus 5.5 for week 2 of NFL picks. And good luck, Ron, of course. We're going to keep it here because I got to give you my picks for in just a moment. No, actually, no. Let's not do that. That's right. We had. Oh, okay, yeah. I think I got this all straight. I should probably do these in order next time. Okay. So let's go to Andy in Seattle. Andy, we're ready for your 2 NFL picks.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, game number 1. We're gonna go to tomorrow's game, and sorry, Yachts. Maybe congratulations, Yachts. Sorry to hear that, Yachts. Hang in there, Yachts. Good luck, Yachts. Sorry, Yachts. I'm taking the Chiefs minus 4. It's just maybe I'm just googly eyes, recency bias, but I loved what I saw Sunday from the Chiefs, especially in that first half. And I don't know if Mahomes had like something extra to prove or whatever, but he looked good. He looked sharp. He looked crisp. All his weapons. It's a lot to go, to go head to head with that type of offense. I know Kansas City's defense it worries you a little bit, but it worries you a little bit. And the Chargers, I don't think Austin Eckler didn't really even exist against the Raiders on Sunday. I don't think he's going to. In fact, I think he'll have a really good game against the Chiefs. But I'm just banking on the Charger coach getting a little too aggressive because he's going to I have to keep up with the Chiefs. I have to keep up with the Chiefs, which is going to result in him going for it on almost every 4th down. I'm banking on the statistics just not working out for him, and maybe they go for it on 4th and 3 a couple times from midfield. They don't get it. Now all of a sudden you got Mahomes in midfield. I just feel like there's going to be a little too much offense for the Chargers to handle. Also, a little bit of a revenge game because I believe the Chargers won in Arrowhead last year. Dave maybe can look that up. But I feel like there's some revenge angle here. And just give me the Chiefs minus 4, game number 1. In game number 2, I'm torn. I like Atlanta, but I'm just this could backfire, but I don't care. I'm a stubborn, irrational piece of shit sometimes. So I'm gonna take the Bengals, giving 7.5. Nance and Romo at Dallas. I just hated what I saw, and I already regret this because the Chiefs' offense, the Bengals' offensive line is actually very atrocious, and I can see Parsons going ham. But they'll just have to get creative with some protecting schemes, and maybe just Burrow's going to have to get the ball out of his hand very quick. Just throw it to Chase right away, and dink and dunk to Mixon, because Dallas does have a very good pass rush. But they have no offense. I'm not betting on Cooper Rush, and CeeDee Lamb can do everything he can, but I think the Bengals will bounce back. Right now, just talking about it, I already regret this pick. I'm worried about the Bengals offensive line issue, because their offensive line is pretty bad. But this is just an anti-Dallas pick, and I don't think the Bengals are going to turn it over 5 times like they did against the Steelers. I don't think they're going to miss field goals like they did against the Steelers. And, Chase didn't even have that great of a game. I mean, he obviously had a touchdown, but for his standards, he gets held to a much higher standard. Burrow gets held to a much higher standard. Time to bounce back. And you got to just take it out on a rudderless, crappy Dallas Cowboy team that unfortunately is going to be on national TV way too much. Even with the healthy Prescott, they're just on way too much. So give me the Bengals, -7.5, game number 2.
All right, Andy. Now let me follow up on your question about the Chargers. And good luck, by the way. Good on the picks. They did beat Kansas City. Now, if you remember from that game in Kansas City, Staley went for it at the 2-yard line with only 30 seconds left, and the Chiefs had no timeouts. Now, what I remember from watching that is I was livid at the time. That was a horrible game clock management decision, because they could have run out the clock, and I think all they needed was a field goal to win the game, and they could have run it down to 2 seconds and then kicked the field goal to win. I mean, it worked out, but you don't want to give the Chiefs the ball back with over a minute and a half to go in the game. Just ask the Bills about that. Do you remember that, fellas?
I remember the Bills, but now that you mention this, yeah, I do remember this now.
Oh, they got away with them there, because you were seeing Mahomes was dinking and dunking and going down the field. They didn't. They just came up short, but man, they looked like they could have definitely won the game if one little thing bounced right. But anyway, they did in fact win that game. Chiefs could have revenge coming up tomorrow, so we'll see. So that leaves us with my picks. Let's go get to them. I did not give you the college picks, so we'll start with those first. Talk about buyer's remorse. I think I may have already lost this one. But from college, game number 1, Nevada getting 23 at Iowa. I totally forgot about this. Oh no, Nevada might not score, so I don't know how that's gonna work out. I don't know, but I think if you're going to pick a side, I feel like that's the proper side to pick. We're going to go with it. Nevada getting 23. Game number 2 in college, we're going to take UTEP giving 3 at New Mexico. Now, this is one that I think our crew, our panel, has very astutely pointed out. New Mexico is one of those teams that no matter who's playing them, you just got to fade them. But beyond that, UTEP's pretty good. They made a bowl last year. It's a pretty solid team, so I think you take a chance with UTEP, and we'll give it 3. So those are the college picks. Nevada plus 23, UTEP minus 3. Now to Sunday, now to the NFL, I'm gonna go head to head with Andy. I'm actually gonna take the Chargers getting the 4 at the Chiefs. There's definitely a bit of recency bias playing into this, which is namely that the Chargers had a nice win against the Raiders that they typically would lose. They held off the Raiders. That's not, usually they find a way to blow that game. I thought maybe things are changing with them. It's a good team. But asking for them to do this in back-to-back years in Kansas City, it's asking a lot. For some reason, I feel like they might do it anyway. We'll find out. So Chargers getting 4. Game number 2. This is most definitely a case of recency bias, and I think I'm on the sharp side of this one. So the Bills, they just were just dynamite. They were dynamite. The first half was terrible, but that second half, they were moving and grooving. They were killing the Rams, and they sacked the Rams 7 times in that game. It's pretty impressive. Now, a friend of mine who I met last weekend in Seattle pointed out, who happens to be originally from Buffalo, pointed out that they were getting 7 sacks without even one blitz in the entire game. You know the last team to do that? And this is, again, I can't take credit for this stat. but the Bills was like several years ago. So that's pretty impressive defense all in all. But having said that, it's very easy to overvalue the Bills after a game like that, because you think, well, they beat the defending champions. Well, we don't know enough about the Rams. They've got personnel changes. We don't know how good they are. And the same thing with the Titans. Well, they just lost to the Giants. Oh my God, they're terrible. I don't think either side is as good or as bad as they looked a week ago. So I think in this game, I expect a much closer game than anticipated. I think Titans are going to cover the 10 pretty easily, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be a one-possession game, so we're going to go Tennessee here. Now, I'm trying to remember what happened in the playoffs. I think at one point the Titans got blitzed in a playoff game. I can't remember anymore. But either way, I love the points. Titans plus 10, Chargers plus 4, week 2. I'll give you a bonus pick before we go into the games of the week. We talked about the Falcons falconing a game. You know, call me crazy. I think I like them getting 10.5 at the Rams. I might be completely I might be completely bonkers here. I don't know, but I just don't think the Rams are that good. How about that? I think they're going to be missing some key pieces from last year. That's sort of my thought. So Falcons plus 10.5, bonus pick. The regular picks: Titans plus 10, Chargers plus 4. Week 2. All right, so let's go kick a quick look at the NFL featured games. Give me just a second to cue this up. But first, obviously, we're talking about a really good one with the Chargers and the Chiefs. That should be an absolute classic. I think that's going to be a really great game. I do think that whether they cover or not, whether either side covers or not, it's going to be a really, really fun one. And that's going to be and I believe it's the regular season debut of Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth on Amazon Prime Video as they take over the Thursday Night Football package this year. So it'll be a really interesting game to follow just from that standpoint. And I'm looking forward to it. If you want to catch some coverage of that on the Twitch side, the Sandwich Show will be doing a live chat show. So Davey's eating a sandwich. If you want to catch us watching the game, one of my friends, Robbie G, will be there with me. But the rest of the schedule is decent, I think. I mentioned Titans Bills. I think that could be sneaky good. That's at 7:15 Eastern on Monday Night Football. Before that, you've got the Cardinals against the Raiders. John, maybe you could explain this better, but I really love the idea of Cliff Kingsbury as an underdog. He really laid an egg. I was really shocked at that. But, hey, it might be a closer game, 4:25 Eastern on CBS. Vikings-Eagles will be the second leg of Monday night, 8:30 Eastern on ABC, because they've kind of staggered the starts for the two Monday Night Football games. Why didn't they do it in week 1? I don't know. That was kind of an unusual choice in and of itself. It's a wacky schedule, but some good games, I think. So let's go back to John, and let's get your thoughts about this week's action.
Yeah, tomorrow's game is definitely the peak of the week for sure. Great division matchup, two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You'd figure it's a lot of points. I mean, the total's pretty high though. 55 to get the over. That's a lot. You figure the Chargers will want to play a little ball control, keep it away from Mahomes, and keep him on the sidelines. And you figure Staley would have that up his sleeve. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure where to go with that game in terms of a spread perspective. You got to figure that the Chiefs are the team to go with at home, but Chargers are tough. I mean, I don't know. I might just have to do a little more thinking before tomorrow comes. Again, I don't have to bet it, but I mean, come on, it's Thursday Night Football. There's nothing else on. There's no college football. I don't even think there's any FCS games on. So we're going to be watching this. We got to bet it. And Dave, you're right. It's the debut of the new Amazon package. So we have to watch just for the hilarity of what's going to happen with this. Although, Al Michaels is great. And then, Dave, it's not Collinsworth. It's Kirk Herbstreit is going to be analyst.
Of course. I don't know why. I don't know. Yeah. Bad job out of me. Bad job.
It's okay.
Bad job. Yeah,
you're still clouded by Tirico and Collinsworth, which is just such a bore
so
now on Sunday Night Football. Yeah. Oh, my God. It's bad. But in any event, that'll be interesting to see how that broadcast goes tomorrow. But, and then the Sunday action, there's no amazing games, but hey, everyone's 1-0 or 0-1. They all mean something at this point. The Patriots-Steelers game is interesting. I think that's going to be a pretty pretty good defensive battle. Dave, you mentioned the Raiders and the Cardinals. Yeah, like I might have to hold my nose and bet Cliff there with like +6 or +5.5. I mean, it's kind of like week 1 to week 2 is like the biggest overreaction with things in sports in the NFL. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, this team's horrible. They're the worst team to ever, step foot on the gridiron. Or like, oh my God, this team's going to win the Super Bowl. They're never going to lose again. It's just like it's not as good as you think, or it's not as bad as you think. So I could see Arizona like staying within the spread on that. I could see like the Raiders by 4. I definitely could see that. So I might lean Arizona. And then same thing like with these teams that lost. Like I already picked Green Bay, but I think Denver's probably a good play too. Like Houston just maybe played the game of their year against the Colts, and now they're going on the road to Denver. I mean, that's usually a tough spot to go to, usually in September anyway, without altitude and whatnot. And the Broncos I think they'll be ready to play for this one. I think I could see that being a blowout. And the 2 Monday night games are really good. I tend to agree with you, Dave, on the Titans pick. I think maybe a little bit of an overreaction from Buffalo's Week 1 performance, and Tennessee has beaten them the last 2 times they played. So I think that might be a tad too high. I can definitely see Tennessee covering that number. And then the Vikings and Eagles, 2 quote contenders now in the NFC. If that ends up being the case, but should be an interesting game. Should be some decent scoring in that. I don't know. I've seen lots of people on Minnesota. Again, I don't know if I want to overreact to week 1 against the Packers, but I'm not a huge fan of Jalen Hurts either. Like, I don't know if he's like the long-term answer there with Philly. That's a tough game. I might just stay away from that one. But should be fun, interesting to watch anyway. And yeah, I think they said there are going to be more of these next year. Like there's going to be like 3 or 4 doubleheaders for Monday Night Football next year with the staggered starts. And honestly, like give me, there's nothing worse than like when there's 10 games at 1 o'clock and then 3 at 4 o'clock. Like let's get some different windows here so we can see some more action. So I'm all for it. But yeah, it should be a good week for just chilling in the sports book, watching some games on Sunday. So be looking forward to that.
Yeah. Are you staying through Monday, John?
Oh yeah, I'll be there. I leave Tuesday, so I'll be there
Okay.
Monday and then Monday night for the 2 games. So that should be fun. So you have like a Monday nights, like usually you just get the 1 game, and I have 2 to follow on on all the TVs there.
Yeah, that's a nice spot. So you can watch both of them simultaneously. Good spot. All right, Andy, let's get your thoughts on this week's action.
Yeah, just to kind of rehash what y'all talked about, it's to borrow Mike's phrase, like you don't want to start 0-2. You don't want to start oh really? Good. You do want to start 0-2? No, yeah. So if Meek was having a show, he'd be like, you look at Denver, you don't want to go 0-2. Green Bay don't want to go 0-2. The Rams don't want to go 0-2. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. But yeah, they that Steeler, obviously the Steeler Pat game being a Pats Mongo, I'll be heavily invested in. And I just looked, the Pats are -2.5 now. That is just a strange line because I don't know, the Patriots watching them and thinking they're gonna like score 7, it's like watching a like disabled like chicken like try to get to the coop. It's like it doesn't look good. Like they don't look good. There's like all these other teams like they run good offense, and watching the and I like Mac Jones. I want to root for Mac Jones, but it's like watching the Jets. I'm sorry, Ron. Sorry, Jet fans. It's watching just an offense that is not highly skilled and efficient. It's like watching the Giants. Sorry, JB. Sorry, LT. It's just not a good offense to watch time and time again. But not like we didn't have a couple good years beforehand. But you get the idea. But that'll be a good game. Iron Eagle, Charles Davis. And then, the more you think about it, I'll be that clown betting on Gosling after all, because I don't like Derek Carr. As John knows, we got screwed because every team converts 2-point conversions like at 50%. It's like a league average. But Derek Carr was 0 for 4 last year at 2-point conversions, and he lost he didn't get the 2-point conversion last week against the Chargers that would have given them the cover. Derek Carr, he also has small hands, so he fumbles the ball. I'm just not a Derek Carr guy. So, yep, sign me up. I'll take the Cardinals. And then I do love the Monday night doubleheader that's staggered, and I think I'm with both you and John on the Titans getting the 10, and that Viking Eagle game, I'm guessing that over under is probably north of 50 or right thereabouts as well. I feel like that game could definitely be very high scoring, and then I'll probably be a Seahawk Mongo, and I think they're getting 9 at the moment, so I need to see Trey Lance whoop some teams before I'm going to take Trey Lance given 9 points. I know Seattle will probably do for a little bit of a reality check because Geno Smith isn't going to go 17 for 18 in the first half like he did last week. But, yeah, man, like football, we are just can't get enough pigskin right now. And the baseball. It's a great time of year, and I love doing these shows, and I'll sign up for 2-2 or 3-1 on the picks because don't want to get too greedy, but I don't want to go 1-3 either. So see what happens.
Absolutely. And it's kind of similar spot, for all of us. Like we're just 2-2 or better. That's a good week. Especially, it's always tough to bet these games, particularly this early in the season. It's hard to say. People are like so sure, so my friend coach was like making these points about the 9. Oh, this team is going to be trash, but it's 1 week. Like it's like, how can we make that point about after 1 week? Like I think it's way too early to make this call about any of these teams. So I'll have a better idea after week 2. Let's see, Kevin, any thoughts on the week 2 action coming up in the NFL?
I mean, Andy is just between the Mike 0-2 and the small hands. I mean, he's got the Francesa textbook stuff right there. That brought me back. No, not much, except we'll get back into it. I like the Amazon thing. I mean, I've told you guys a bunch of times now. We've got a 1-year-old and a almost 4-year-old. So anything at night is like anything extra. Thursday night, 2 games on Monday, Sunday night. I'll be with you. Yeah. Besides that, that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm just rocking and rolling to you guys and looking forward to it. Oh, but the goddamn Mets got swept by the Cubs.
I saw that.
And that is all.
That can't happen, Kevin. In this time of the year.
That can't happen.
No,
that's. I don't know. What are they doing?
The Mets the Cubs have pretty much waved the white flag on that season. That really can't happen. That's just.
I purposely took my Cubs hat that I got just as like a souvenir and like hit it, but that didn't work. Did not work.
That's tough. That's rough. Sorry, man. I want to hang in there as far as that's concerned. That's rough.
And another news. Massachusetts. It looks like sports betting probably by the end of the year, Andy.
All right.
So,
big time.
They had a meeting, I think yesterday or something, and all the corrupt little people are, but it's something like they're giving out a specific number of licenses. Like you already have to, so like all the casinos are going to get it, obviously, and like a couple. So I'm hoping for the New Year's 6 to be my debut for real. So I'm using this as all homework. So by then I'm going to be ready to go.
It feels like that should have happened soon. I feel like Connecticut was very quick from the time when passing to going live.
Well, you can read between the lines. You're a smart guy. Like I'm reading these articles and it should happen quick, but it's almost like these commissions are like, well, we have to justify the fact that we're getting 6 figures. We can't just like, they want to make all these little rules and all this other stuff. And I'm like, just like they had a guy on from, so the Wynn, I guess, is in like Springfield, near Springfield now or something. One of the Wynn resorts.
There's the Wynn, which is in Everett, which sticks out like an eyesore. I got hammered. I lost so much money there 2 years in a row, but like that sports book is like, it's there. Like the infrastructure is
the guy called it like the Toucher and Rich show or something in the morning and was just like, oh, we literally could just flip a switch. Mm-hmm. And then the commission lady calls the show like 20 minutes later saying he misrepresented everything, and
Oh,
they're like,
no.
come on,
Yeah.
like they're all just ready to go.
And the
They'll have, like,
MGM,
the apps are already built, everything's ready to go.
MGM is the one in Springfield.
Oh, all right, nice, yeah, okay. Well, I probably won't be on site, but once that gets up and going, this will be exciting. I already withdrew my I think I was like 500 bones from my my FanDuel horse racing account to fund my New Year's Six excitement. So
Connecticut and New Hampshire, New Hampshire has sports books. Connecticut has everything. I mean, other states should just follow suit. It's like Washington, thank goodness. I mean, I still gamble online anyway, but Washington now has like probably a half dozen casinos that have sports book on site. So it's slowly but surely. I mean, we knew this was coming at some point.
It's surprising it took so long.
I agree with that, but I'm going to give you the California perspective on this too, because what we have in California, we have two propositions on the ballot for the upcoming election in November.
California loves propositions.
Oh God, do they ever?
Oh my goodness.
Oh, do they ever? But at any rate, hold on. What happened over here? Oh, I know what happened. I just need to change this. Okay, so give me a second here. But at any rate, what the hell? Okay, hold on. YouTube situation. Okay, there we go. Oh, there we go. We got everybody back. There we go. That got way too exciting. But at any rate,
that was exciting.
But so here's what happened with that. So one of the propositions, Prop 27, basically says, hey, FanDuel and DraftKings and whoever can do online gambling. That's great. And there's another one, Prop 26, which I don't exactly know what that is, but the Indian tribal casinos have been putting these relentless campaigns on TV that are saying, oh my God, if you vote yes on 27, you're going to be cheating people out of everybody's going to go homeless. You're going to be cheating people out of this. And it's like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, this is literally a power play by the casinos, by the tribal casinos, to try to get a piece of the pie. This nonsense about the homelessness is ridiculous, because both of them should have some say in that. What's really happening in my book is that the propositions in question are a matter of who's going to be getting this, who's going to be allowed to do the sports betting. Now, look, do you want to let the tribal casinos make these calls? That doesn't make sense to me. You can't use these casino apps easily on a phone. You know, I think that's kind of a mess. So I encourage you to read about the California scenario, because it's like, the way you see it in the commercial makes you think like, oh my gosh, they're gonna just steal all this money away from cities and communities, and it's like, that's not what it is. It's because the tribes want the money to stay with them. They don't want anything to cut into it. But at the same time, it's like, they weren't doing sports gambling anyway. I'm very confused as to the position of that, other than they don't want people to stop from going to their casinos, but they still can go there for other gaming. It's just the sports gambling in particular is just going to be its own deal. So you want to ask me about it, I'm voting for the one that lets you gamble on FanDuel and DraftKings. Pretty simple. So anyway, I don't know if you guys you probably were not up to speed on that, but
Dave putting just another nail in the coffin of the Native Americans.
No, it's not. That's not fair. That's not fair. That's not fair. Because, like, listen, at the end of the day, it's a matter. I don't want to undercut the success of Native American casinos. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, I think they're being a little disingenuous as to what their position is, and they do that on purpose. They want people to vote in favor of what their interests are. I get it, but
I'll never feel bad for a casino, tribe or not tribe. I'll never feel bad for a casino.
Exactly, Andy. That's the point. It's like they're acting like there's this real social issue. Ultimately, it's just these casinos wanting a bigger cut of the pie. That's my thought on it. So anyway, I'm glad things are moving along in Connecticut. I'm glad things are moving along in Massachusetts. I am hopeful that people vote the way that I feel like they should vote in November. It's not the end of the world if they don't, fine. But at least I'm just giving you what I think is going to happen. So that's the scenario. And then you said Washington's about pretty close, Andy?
So Washington's had Washington's had sports gambling for about a year now.
Oh, okay. But how does that affect online?
Only at the Native American casinos.
See, like that, and that's it's better than nothing, right?
Better than nothing.
But
I there's no FanDuel, even though one of the casinos is FanDuel, but there's no I can't play in the duels that Leo and I can't get in the golf duels. I'd love to do the golf duels, but whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't even really gamble at those. I gamble there, but I don't make sports bets there really.
Yeah.
Because I have other options anyways.
Right. And what can you have access to every single day? And that's why I'm in favor of the online casinos, because it's like you can get easy access to it. And I think it's just a more fun product. So that's all. All right, so I wanted to make sure we didn't leave the show before we talked about Scott Frost. I mean, it really went to shit. He was fired on Sunday after really embarrassing losses to both Northwestern and Georgia Southern. And I think the thing I wanted to say is that I really think that it just didn't work out. I don't think you can go back and say Nebraska blew it. What did they blow? It seemed like a great call at the time. I'm going to go to John first, but what do you think went wrong with Scott Frost? I just don't understand why he seems so good at UCF and he seems so bad in Nebraska. How would you explain it?
I mean, on paper, it seemed like a great fit. The only thing I would say is he did that at UCF. It was only 2 years. His first year, he was 6-6, and then he had the unbelievable 13-0 or whatever it was, that they were the quote national champions, the whole bit. That was with George O'Leary's players. He didn't recruit, 90% of the team. Obviously, he had a couple of recruiting classes, but the majority of the players weren't his. So, obviously you give him credit for working with what he had there, but, he didn't build that program, 5, 6, 7 years of sustained success and then get the job. So I think that maybe he was kind of overvalued in the market. I mean, you got to strike where the iron is hot for sure. So I can't blame Nebraska for doing it. He's a former player and, he's coming off an unbelievable year at Central Florida in 2017. So, you can't fault them for making the hire, but maybe he just wasn't as good as advertised. And, Nebraska is one of those programs with maybe a little, they value themselves a little higher now than maybe they should be. I mean, this isn't 1995 anymore. They're not one of the top 5, programs in college football. I mean, they're in the top 25 for sure, but they have a higher opinion of themselves than what they should. I think at this point, and the expectations have to be a little different. And obviously, he never won a bowl game, so clearly he had to go. But I think that played into it as well, and they just can't get the talent that some of these other schools can get. So I think all those factors played into this marriage not going well, and they had to let him go. And it's just telling that I guess his buyout would have gone down by $7.5 million if they waited to October 2nd. They wanted his ass gone so bad, they just ate $7.5 million. I'm sure there's a donor there, in Lincoln that'll pick up the tab of the $7.5 million. But maybe Frost will be like Clay Helton and will go to a G5 school next year, and he'll do fine. But it just didn't work out there, and he lost all those close games. It's just not a good tenure, and he proved himself not to be as competent as maybe we thought he was at UCF.
Yeah, he definitely looked in over his head, and it seemed more and more evident with every game. I am still a little surprised that they did, even with the loss of Georgia Southern. It's was $7.5 million really worth 3 other games? Were they really going to lose every one of those? I would have been surprised. It just seems, does it make that much of a difference at this point? I mean, game wise, that's a lot of money. That's what I was a little surprised about, but I don't know. Andy, let's go to you to get your thoughts on Frost's post-mortem.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, what happened. I think, what's that quote in The Office when Andy Bernard's talking to his girlfriend at the time? I wish I wish you could know when things are at their absolute best, when they're actually at their best rather than like after the fact. And Scott Frost was at his best with George O'Leary's players, and 12-0 at UCF. That was his apex of his coaching career. He just didn't know it at the time. He thought better things were yet to come at Nebraska. And I mean, it made sense at the time. He was, regardless of what he did, hiding in the closet when Lawrence Phillips wanted to kick his ass. And that's a true story.
Dude, so would anyone on the planet would go into any hide from that guy.
That's true.
You hear the stories about Lawrence Phillips. Oh my goodness. They are
Crazy
legendary.
Guy. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it just, sometimes those situations just don't pan out, or like the local or the hero as a player comes back to coach. And I mean, it worked for Spurrier, but it just didn't work for Scott Frost. And it, like, right away, it just seemed like, oh shit, what happened here? But to John's point, like, Nebraska is just like Tennessee. Their perception is based off of like historical performances that are way too historical at this point, and they should just be more realistic with their goals and aspirations. Like, it's okay to be okay. Or what do they say with the mental way? It's okay to not be okay. But for Nebraska's point, it's okay to be, halfway decent. But
yeah,
they want it to be, 1972, 1995. They want to compete with Ohio State and Penn State and Michigan, when they probably are basically more in line with Wisconsin and Iowa in Michigan State, and and yeah, like if they get Matt Campbell, then I don't know. Like you see on the internet, like, why, if you're Matt Campbell, like Iowa State, you're much more. Matt Campbell can continue to be 9-3 at Iowa State and not really have to feel any pressure. Matt Campbell goes 9-3 and 8-4. Those Conehusker fans are going to be seeing red. We saw it on Twitter. Like, Scott Frost would have had to go like 30-0 to like equal Bo Pelini's record or win.
John said that last week or the week before. Yeah. Like 50 or something. It was something ridiculous.
Yeah, and Bo Pelini was laughed out of town. So, I mean, their expectations just need to get totally recalibrated,
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Kevin?
I think, like, you guys didn't just nail it. They think they're Ohio State and Michigan, and they like look down on like the Baylors and like those teams, those programs have passed them. So that's part of the problem. I don't think money is the problem. They have tons. I looked it up. They, like, just a couple of years ago, they were still paying Pelini, and I mean, they paid Bill Callahan like $6 million to leave. They paid a lot of people to leave, and they've just got $1 billion in the Big Ten contract. So I don't think any of that's an issue. I'm more curious of where they're going to go. Because it was, John, you like when they were undefeated, did they even beat, besides the bowl game, they wouldn't have beaten anyone of any real consequence anyway. With Frost was 13-0. Like, it seemed like they just got kind of caught up in he was an ex-player and he was this All-American and we won the national title, but that was when they were running the option. And like, I mean, I don't know. It just, I obviously hindsight, everyone thought it was a good hire, so I wouldn't say it wasn't, but I mean, I think it was Auburn, right? Did they play in?
Yeah, that was a great win. They beat Auburn. But other than that, I can't think of a notable team that they beat that year. I know they beat Memphis in the AAC title game.
Okay, yeah.
They beat Auburn in the bowl game, but other than that, I don't remember anybody else that they beat.
Even Andy, like with Campbell, like the fans, that whole program, if you went to them and said, we're going to bring in a guy from Iowa State, they don't even care. Like, they think they're so above that stuff where you're going to have to, come at someone with real head coaching experience. I don't know. I feel like Albert is not going to get this right. He's going to kind of
Urban Meyer.
Yeah, like someone who's a total lunatic. who in the middle of Nebraska. Forget about the video of that girl grinding on his knee.
I remember.
I mean, like he can't. Yeah, that would be something. I like. I don't know. I'm hoping he comes with something kind of out of the box. I like guys like Stoops. I don't know why would you go to Nebraska. But and you've heard Bill O'Brien, and I don't know. I don't have much confidence in getting this right, only because of, like you said, with the Tennessee and the Texas and where they think they're at. You know, they sort of look down on these other coaches, and even the guy from Baylor, they would like, we're not taking the Baylor coach, but I don't know. I feel like it's it's one of these really tough places because they're still living in the 90s and even like Andy said the 70s, but at least, you know, I'm on the Chadwell bandwagon, the Coastal Carolina guy. That's gonna be I'm gonna be tooting his horn for that job. It's sort of like his offense is kind of cool. It's a little bit of the throwback mixed in with some new stuff. So I haven't watched too much of them yet, but so far. And then the interim guy is never going to get the job, but it would be nice to see him actually do well and maybe get another job off of this. The first black coach, by the way, not just in Nebraska football history, but the university history. So I thought that was kind of cool.
That's crazy. I mean,
yeah, any sport.
That's just. I know it's Nebraska, but that's just crazy to me. That's crazy to me.
It's shocking.
Yeah,
like
that's crazy. It's like not even track, not even basketball. Like
yeah, any sport. I've been doing a lot of with the stuff I've been doing with the coaches. I've been delving into more of the kind of the disparity and diversity in the ADs and the coaches and stuff. And that was a yeah, not like women's volley, nothing. Like not one. This is the first black coach in Nebraska history.
Well, then you have some catching up to do. That's I think that's the best way I could position
and
it.
There is a way backdoor correlation because he's never been a coordinator or an offensive defensive coordinator. He's like a wide receivers coach. But I looked at his exact resume is very similar to Mr. Sweeney's in Clemson. They have like almost the same. He's older, but
right.
Like they kind of came in now, they're the interim, and then they got the job. I mean, obviously Clemson at that time wasn't Clemson now, but I'm pulling for Mickey Joseph and then Mr. Chadwell in Coastal Carolina right now.
I love it. Yeah, he's been doing great things at Coastal. The shots have been just really on a great magic carpet, right? Like I root for him too. Andy, before we go, what were the two bonus picks? They were totals, right? You had a team total, and then you had another one, I think.
Oh yeah, you don't have to write them down. I just said, but yeah, it was Georgia State over their team total against Maryland, and then the Fresno State USC over.
Oh, that's yeah. We were talking about that. That's a good one. Fresno State USC over.
Hopefully Andy's not chasing by that time because like he'll go with the fourth gummy and the game is going to be at like 11 o'clock at night. He's going to be betting the second half over.
Yeah, that always happens. Yeah.
And just to make sure that it's a 12:30 start for the Washington game.
No, 4:30 out here, 7:30 local,
okay.
7:30 East Coast time. And John's game, North Texas is 3-point underdog.
I know. I think I'm gonna have to put a bet on North Texas now that I'm thinking about it. I just won't wear any I don't have any North Texas apparel, so I'll be fine at the stadium.
Is that on campus? Where is that?
It's they play where the Raiders play, Legion Stadium.
Oh, nice. Oh, cool. Oh, that'll be fun.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I went to actually to a game last year. They played Iowa State and got absolutely just demolished. It was like 48-3. You would like the amount of Iowa State fans at that game. 5 times the amount of UNLV fans. So I imagine this one's going to be very, very less attended. So it should be interesting. But yeah, I'm definitely leaning towards North Texas getting the field goal in that game.
I think I enjoy the game, John. That's going to be great. I do wonder if Scott Campbell's going to be the next guy that kind of goes to a bigger program and then doesn't really impress people. Because Ron is first guessing that now. You all heard him and his thoughts on Scott Campbell. He is not high on him at all. I think you weren't either, John, for that matter, if I recall correctly. I'm not sure.
Matt Campbell?
Yeah, Matt Campbell. Matt Campbell.
I think Scott.
Yeah, I mean, like he had he had his best team ever last year, and
Yeah.
like they just fell on their face a number of times.
Yeah.
I think he's fine for what he is. I just don't think he's like this, like, savior for a program. Like
Yeah.
that, if that's what you're looking for, like I'm not on board with that. Like if you want to win 7 games a year, like sure, But hey, he'll be better than Frost if he does that. So
Right.
might as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll see where Scott Frost ends up next. He will end up somewhere. Everybody does, Even guys like Bob Davey did at New Mexico at one point in time. Retreads end up everywhere at some point.
Well, Danny just said Lovie Smith is back. I mean, everybody gets recycled. And college has got 130 jobs opposed to the NFL. So Frost will be, someone will hire him, sure.
If Lovie Smith has a job, everybody's going to have a job. I mean...
Well, like Hugh Freeze
if he follows the Cliff Kingsbury model, Scott Frost will be the coach of the Jets next year.
Yeah, or he'll come, be like the OC somewhere, and the coach get canned, and then they'll just promote him.
Yeah,
but yeah. I mean, I'm stunned at some of these names. I'm like, holy cow, this guy's back. Hugh Freeze, the guy who was like texting escorts, is the head coach of Liberty. You cannot get more of a. That was strange, but so. Born again, retread. There you go.
Liberty had a good year though when they had Willis.
I'm not saying he's bad.
Yeah, no, he's a sleaze, but he's
for the over Catholic, uber zealot Liberty crew.
Yeah,
but
right. No, I understand. I got you. It's a juxtaposition for sure. We're running a little late tonight, so anybody want to throw in some final thoughts before we go?
I'm starving. I'm getting the Shake Shack spicy burger sponsored by Hot Ones.
I dig it. I do want to say,
everyone wins
the Shake Shack spicy burger. That sounds amazing.
Hope everyone has a great weekend, winning some bets, and be here next week, hopefully, and for a good recap.
Good luck, John. Jealous.
Thank you.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, that's gonna be awesome.
Have a great weekend, John. Safe travels, my friend.
Thank you, Dave.
You bet. All right, everybody. Well, take care, everyone. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Take care, bud.
All right. Good luck, everybody.
Bye, Juan.
See ya.
See ya. John, Andy, Kevin. Another great show. It was really, really good stuff. I do want to, like, I'm sorry I got so fired up about the Prop 27 situation. Like, I need to read a little more about it to really have a better idea of what is happening with that. But naturally, as Andy said, I think Andy made a great point when he said, don't ever feel sorry for casinos, no matter who's running them. They're casinos. They make tons of money. So I think that's an important thing to remember. So go with what works best for your situation. And I think in my case, I feel like the one that allows the integration of the world of sports gambling with this thing, I think that's the way you do it. Anyway, that's our show tonight. Thank you very much for tuning in. It was a really fun time. Good luck, everyone, on your picks. We hope you enjoyed our advice. If you missed any part of it, the replays here on YouTube. We apologize for the lack of audio in the beginning of the show. That's completely on me, and Windows 11 for that matter. But regardless, you can catch the complete audio at our podcast feed. Look for Dave in the City out. Look for DITCOW Football on Apple Podcasts or your podcast player of choice, or go to ditcow.com. I'm Dave Medina. Have a great rest of your week. If you want more football coverage, we'll be back on Twitch. Davey's eating a sandwich with a live commentary of the Thursday Night Football game, and we'll see you next time.